Testament. Today we're continuing looking at Paul's his trip to Rome and all the different things that happened there. Today we're looking at Acts 27 verses 27 through 44. It was the 14th night, and we were being driven in the Mediterranean by the storm. About midnight, the sailors suspected we were getting close to land, so they dropped a line and with a weight tied to it, and found the water was 120 feet deep. A little later, they did the same and found it was 90 feet deep. They were afraid that the ship would go on the rocks, so they lowered 4 anchors from the back of the ship and prayed for daylight. Then the sailors tried to escape from the ship. They lowered the boat into the water and pretended that they were going to put out some anchors from the front of the ship. But Paul said to the army officer and the soldiers, "If the sailors don't stay aboard, you have no hope of being saved." So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the boat and let it go. Just before dawn, Paul begged all of them to eat some food. "You have been waiting for 14 days now, and all this time you have not eaten a thing. I beg you then, eat some food. You need it in order to survive. Not even a hair on your head will be lost." After saying this, Paul took some bread and gave thanks to God before them all, broke it, and began to eat. They took courage, and every one of them also ate food. There was a total of 276 of us on board. After everyone had eaten enough, they lightened the ship by throwing all the wheat into the sea. When day came, the sailors did not recognize the coast, but they noticed a bay with a beach and decided that if possible they would run the ship aground there. So they cut off the anchors and let them sink into the sea. At the same time, they untied the ropes that held the steering oars. Then they raised the sail all at the front of the ship so that the wind would not blow the ship forward. And head for shore. But the ship hit a sandbank and went aground. The front part of the ship got stuck and could not move, while the back part was being broken to pieces by the violence of the waves. The soldiers made a plan to kill all the prisoners in order to keep them from swimming ashore and escaping, but the army officer wanted to save Paul, so he stopped them from doing this. Instead, he ordered everyone who could swim to jump overboard and swim ashore. The rest were to follow, holding onto planks or some broken pieces of the ship, and this was how we got all safely ashore. So a couple things here that kind of caught my attention. And when things were really bad, 14 days, it was night, they couldn't see anything, and they were just in trouble. And they didn't know what to do. So they lowered the anchors and they prayed for daylight. Have you ever had a time in your life where it was just so dark and you didn't see a way out, and you just prayed for daylight, prayed to see light, a light at the end of the tunnel, to see your way forward? That's where they were. Paul understood what was going to happen, but the rest of them didn't. They didn't believe Paul. And Paul, despite everything that already happened, he knew God was faithful. Despite the fact that they were in this situation, he knew that while it would be hard, God would provide and God would save them. And he did over and over and over in this. They were able to make it to the point where they were close to shore. They didn't, the ship didn't wreck out at the sea. But even as they were coming ashore and running aground, the soldiers were like, "Okay, we're in charge of these prisoners and we don't want to escape, so we're going to kill them." But that was prevented by the commanding officer for Paul's sake. God protected Paul even in the midst of this hardship, even in the midst of what was going on, because he had a purpose for Paul. He had a purpose, and he was going to get him to Rome, and Paul knew that, so he didn't doubt. I think that's something we can learn from, to have the faith to know God has a purpose for me. God has a calling in my life, and I am beloved by God, so that while I may face hardship, I will not be destroyed by it. I will not be completely overcome. Now, I'm not saying God will never give you more than you can handle on your own, because he will, because he did for Paul. And the reason Paul was able to go through it is because he never faced it on his own. he always knew that God was with him. He always depended on the strength of God. He always looked to Jesus in that situation. And it was because of that that Paul was able to get through this. I think that's something important to remember, that we are to look to Jesus. We look to the cross. We depend on God to give us strength as we face hardship, because it's then and only then that we know we'll be able to make it through. Hope you guys are doing well. Have a wonderful day.